Welcome to The Call to Rise, the podcast for sacred rebels, visionaries, and conscious changemakers. Here we sit down with the people birthing the new earth, weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy to build movements that heal, transform, and uplift our world. I'm Mackenzie Darling, your host, inviting you into honest conversations, practical tools, and hard-won wisdom to awaken your power and to inspire you to answer the call to rise and to meet this moment in history. Welcome, everyone, to this week's The Call to Rise. I am so excited to have Olivia McDonald, who happens to bring all of my favorite things under one umbrella: psychedelics, personal development, spirituality, and AI. Welcome, Olivia. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me on here, Mackenzie.
Yeah, I'm really excited to unpack your story and learn a little bit more about the Activation Project. With that in mind, let's read your bio really quick so people can get a feel for who you are. Olivia McDonald is a seasoned professional in the field of psychedelics with over 5 years of experience as an integration specialist. Her journey in this transformative realm began as a passionate educator, guiding individuals through profound frameworks to help them unlock their inner potential. Recognizing the critical importance of integration as a fundamental aspect of the psychedelic journey, Olivia founded the Activation Project. TAP is a pioneering software platform dedicated to simplifying and revolutionizing psychedelic aftercare. Under Olivia's visionary leadership, TAP is a transformative force in the field, providing accessible and affordable tools and resources for individuals on their integration journey. Olivia is deeply committed to making integration, aftercare, an integral part of the psychedelic experience, ensuring that individuals receive the support they need to translate their insights into lasting positive change. Through her work at TAP, Olivia is reshaping the landscape of psychedelic therapy, empowering individuals to harness the full potential of their transformative experiences. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the important work that you're doing. And as an entheogenic minister myself, I very much realize the importance of integration. I often say that, without really the integration piece, you're just kind of doing drugs. It's the ceremonial piece of the intention of what are you going to bring back into your everyday life? I think that's really where the work begins. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. You said it perfectly. That's how I feel about it. And yeah, it's an honor. It's regenerative. So I get as much from it as I feel that I put out.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that's how, a lot of movement makers feel, right? When you get on the threshold of, I was actually born to bring this into the world. It does. It just feels so incredibly regenerative as you're working endless days and putting your heart and all of your life force energy into something. It really revitalizes you because you were meant to do that. And with that being said, a lot of times in these interviews, I like to start off with the story that got you to the threshold of, the Activation Project. And with many movement makers, it's really a pain to purpose story. So can you share a little bit about what brought you here?
Yes, I would love to. My story is a little bit explicit. And so I'm just wondering, and it can be long or it can be short. So should I do 10, 15 minute?
Yeah, let's do a
Okay.
10-minute.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, and for any of the listeners out there, you have been warned. And if this is about, there's sexual abuse within this story, correct?
There is. I won't go too much into that, but I'll touch on some details because it's actually very relevant to a very recent breakthrough I had over the weekend, which is kind of
awesome.
So much of integration is that it's just an ongoing process, which is wonderful. So I was born and raised in a group called the Children of God, which became very notorious and then became the Family and then the Family International. And understanding paradox and being able to hold two opposing truths in my hand at once became one of the first big catalysts of integration and healing for me. And so within that framework, I'll describe the way I grew up. On the one hand, being a missionary organization, revolving around Jesus and his love and his light and his peace and community and family. We were in 120 different countries. We had communes in every country that ranged in between 35 to 150 people. And on the other hand, on the dark shadow side, it was a very infamous religious sex cult. And so within that organization, within that context, just like with everything in life, there was a lot of shadow and there was also a lot of light. And growing up in that community, I got to feel what it was like to be connected to a big group of people, all of who felt connected to purpose and making a difference in the world and impact and working together to help each other. I also saw how corruption can really expand and how the ego with power starts to corrupt and how that starts to affect people, how hierarchy of leadership starts to corrode and erode safety. So a lot of different experiences within that group. We moved very often, every like 6 months to 1 to 2 years. And each time we moved from one commune to the next, it was like moving in with a whole new huge family, new brothers and sisters, new aunties and uncles, new parental figures, fathers, mothers. And it was interesting because I was having a conversation about what home and belonging means recently. And I got to feel what that meant, because even though we moved so much, because the culture was very strong within the group, you felt that same sense of home and belonging and familiarity, that same structure of schedule. Every home had the same schedule of when we woke up and how the day went, but then also making really strong, deep connections with people and then leaving and never seeing them again. And so this really overwhelming sense of impermanence was also something that I learned. So being able to love really fast and hard and then being able to like pull out and leave, and so that played into my relationships. At 15, in Guatemala, I ran away. I escaped the cult. My older sister had already left. I had already experienced quite a bit of trauma and abuse at that point and decided I wanted to go out on my own. I'd been fundraising and selling Jesus to people since I was a child. And so felt like I was very resourced, very grown, and that I was ready to take on the world. Without telling anyone, I packed my bags and escaped really late at night, which was no easy task because we had big, huge iron gates with barbed wire and one person held the key. And so it was quite strategic to be able to get out of that situation. I had everything set up for me to leave. I had a job waiting for me as a bartender, a place to live, and I found the path freedom for a 15-year-old, no rules, no adult supervision, working in a bar with alcohol, and things got really interesting really quickly. Quite scary. I was shot at a couple times, almost killed, really started to experience even more sexual trauma. I grew up in a very sex positive, hypersexual environment, and the women were not really taught how to say no. So, and it was very, transactional. So anytime I was in any type of a situation where I felt pressure to do that, I just surrendered to it. So a few months later, I decided to go back and visit with the guy I was dating who had anger issues, and I felt like he needed help. I was like, well, maybe you need Jesus. Like, that's not for me, but maybe he could help you. So we hitchhiked up into the mountains to the commune there so I could visit my mom. I hadn't seen her in maybe like 6 months. And somebody in the home, one of the spiritual shepherds said, hey, Olivia, can I play you this song? God told me to play you this song. And I was like, okay. So he pulled out his guitar, and as soon as he started strumming this guitar, my heart burst open and I was flooded with this feeling of unconditional love and forgiveness. And I knew in that moment that I was meant to be of service for the rest of my life, and that somehow I was meant to help people to find that same feeling. It made everything make sense. Everything was clear. And so the only context or framework or vehicle that I had connected to that experience was the cult. So I decided to rejoin, and I did a complete 180. I was like on fire for Jesus, and going out every day and like convincing all the young people, all the second generation young people in the group to stay in the family, because all of us wanted to leave. None of us had chosen to be there. We were born and raised into it. So it started this little mini revolution. And at the time, we were subscribing people to this motivational self-help magazine called Activated. And I really got behind that because I was like, oh, this is a way we can help people. It's not just to make money. It's actually a tool we can use to help people to like have insights. And so much, many beautiful interactions and things were happening. I was 16, 17, so filled with purpose. But bit by bit, just started to really get sucked back into the corruption of the system that was systemic within the group, abuse of power. And by then, most of the homes within the group had just kind of lost the plot and were really focused around either survival and making money and having to like support a huge commune of people where nobody had a secular job. Or they were just wrapped up into how they could use the power that they were given. So the entire structure of the group is another story for a different day. But long story short, I ended up leaving again at 19. I had had enough. I could not reconcile how to use this vision and mission that I had personally within the construct of this cult. So I left the group, followed my sister out, and moved to Austin at 19. Then I went to school for psychology, and that led me down a 10-year path of utter chaos and alcohol-fused, wild partying, cocaine, but also working really hard and hustling and needing to achieve and work and dominate. And I just got further and further disconnected from my heart and from that place that I was in at 16. Until I just reached my breaking point. In my mind, I was like, I was raised a missionary in this beautiful setting. My mom was an angel. Why am I so messed up? Why do I have so much dysfunction in my life? Behaviorally, relationally, economically, socially. And around that time, I found out about MAPS and that organization with Rick Doblin. And there was something that really spoke to me about MDMA therapy. And I just felt like it was something that could help me. And very shortly after that, I had somebody that I knew approached me and was like, hey, I've been trained in this MDMA facilitation. I've been taking people through journeys. Would you be interested in doing one with me? And I was like, yes, I've been wanting to do it. And he said, okay, great. He was like, have you ever taken the ACE test? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't need to take that. That's for people who've actually experienced severe trauma. I didn't even identify as having had sexual trauma at that time. And for 40% of my childhood, not identify as a victim. So he was like, well, why don't we just do it anyways? And so I ended up scoring an 8 out of very high trauma. Just pressure that rushing all of I had hurt and felt this like lightness return. And through I was back with that, knowing how to help people, how to serve, how to get people back to this feeling of unconditional love. I had all of my memories come back, and then that just sort of led me on this course of facilitation and integration.
Before we go any further, I want to speak directly to the revolutionaries that are listening. The ones who know that their lives carry a deeper purpose of service in this moment. If you can feel that you weren't meant to simply succeed inside the old systems, but to help reshape what comes next, this invitation is for you. I've created the Movement Maker Archetype Quiz, a powerful tool that reveals one of 7 leadership archetypes emerging right now to guide us through this threshold moment in history. This isn't about personality. It's about discovering your unique leadership medicine. the role you're here to play in our. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, that is one of the most powerful stories that I've heard. And what I heard throughout that was just so much bravery that you had. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being 15 years old and running away and then, at 19 going on this path. And you certainly are the cycle breaker and really, really a strong individual. So I commend you, and I'm sorry that that happened to you, but I am a true believer that the alchemy, you're here to give a lot of medicine to the world, as you've brought in with, TAP. So thank you for sharing that with us. There's so much that I want to chew on from your story there. I guess before we kind of get into your movement, what I would love to chat about is I'm in the business of helping spiritual leaders build movements. And I've worked with various spiritual leaders building movements, and that shadow that you talk about and that power structure, especially in spiritual and religious communities. And so I would love for you to talk about that with my audience. How does a beautiful vision turn out to be so dark more often than not?
Yeah. So thank you. It's such a great question, and it's something I think about a lot. This year, the word that I claimed for the year was integration. And my intention around that was to fully understand, even though I've been in the integration practice for years, I finally was like, I want to fully embody it. I want to know, because there was some, dissonance that was still happening in my life. And throughout this year, what came to me really strongly was integration is integrity, and integrity is wholeness. And so it's finding the parts in ourselves and in our lives that are out of integrity, that are out of wholeness with each other. And that's when we have the opposing parts. And so that's one aspect of it. And I'll go deeper into that for how it relates to me personally. But just in general, one thing that I've seen is that the ego cannot withstand unchecked power for a duration of time. And so these hierarchical systems where the guru or the shaman or the spiritual leader, someone is put on any type of pedestal for any duration of time without the proper checks and balances system, without people that they can trust to reflect back the truth to them and what they see, with these opposing parts that inevitably are going to come out through circumstance, experience, through even having that much influence over people, starts to bring out the shadow side. And you need the right systems in place to be able to call that out. We are moving out of this old paradigm of me as my brand, me-centric collective state of consciousness, where the guru or the person or the coach is, their name is the whole thing, right? And then you have people that are doing, and I don't want to call out anybody's names, but I get it. That was even Ram Dass, who is like my favorite spiritual teacher of all time. He learned from that model, from the guru, and he still struggled with the implications of that model, where they feel like they have to, be up on the hill. They can't expose themselves too much lest their flock or their following lose faith, right? Or like lose their healthy respect for them, and therefore they lose their power. So they stop showing their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. And that's where things really start to get wonky. And so the cult leader, he had all yes men around him. And Putin is a prime example. He's just been in power for too damn long. There's a reason why we need rotating leaderships. There's a reason why it makes sense to have people in power for a limited amount of time. And there's shared responsibilities. And you go from being top dog to maybe being a little person and doing the little person job, because humility is the most important quality that a leader can have. Never too good to at some point go and clean the toilet if that is what's needed. And even having tasks like that come in and allow for that. But also really recognizing like the thing, part of, I think, knowing ourselves, which is step one in this whole like path of integration and then path to impact and service and leadership, is to know yourself. And what comes through that is the experiences and imprinting and impacts that have shaped us. And that way we can really understand and have compassion, but then also let go of them and be free from them. So in my case, growing up in that really sexual environment, but also with so much dissonance, which is like we were taught sexuality, but then we were also shamed for it. So I always felt like I had a strong like sexual power. When I came back from running away, two of the spiritual leaders, women, told me that I was possessed by a demon of seduction. And they created, like, told me this whole vision of her that they could see her with her long, like, tentacle nails on me, and her name was Bedazzled. And that stuck with me for a long time. I was afraid of my sexual power. And and it got me on probation, and it like led me through a lot of pain and suffering, and that ended up following me for years. And even in the practice that I have now, that fear and shame that I held with this part of me, that I have a very sexual part, but trying to like suppress it and hide it, and it's showing up in different ways that were unhealthy. And as a woman, I mean, we see that happen with men quite a lot, especially in this space, leaky sexual energy. And so it was hard to be a woman, but also experiencing that. And so I'll tell you really quickly what happened this weekend. I was sharing that story in with a group of people that are in like our women's circle here. And we had gotten into that topic, and I was telling them that. And I've done a lot of work around that sense to bring that into integrity, but I never really, it was still something that was like this, like still had an emotional charge around it. And the girl I was telling, she's like listening, she's like, "Oh my God, Olivia, that is so hot. Wow." She's like, "Of course you are. Of course you're bedazzled." I was wearing these bedazzled tights, and I love to dress up, and I love costume, and I had a wig on. And she's like, "Yes, you are. And that's so beautiful and hot." And it was just like something just like shifted in me. It just like her like recognition and validation. And she's like, "A demon of seduction? Who would it be if she came fully out, and if she was allowed to express herself and say what she wanted?" And that permission just did something for me that just integrated that part of me. But it's like, where do we have shame? How can we talk about that with the empathetic witness? How can we be reflected back with like love and validation, especially from, for me, the feminine? Because I was shamed by the feminine, which is weird. I mean, also by the men, but I needed that healing quality there to really step back into that, because we as women, so much of our creative power, so much of our feminine power comes from the sacral, which is where our sexuality is. And so if we're blocked there, we're blocking part of that energetic flow. And so we cannot be in integrity. We cannot be in wholeness. We cannot fully have the shadow and the light integrated, which is going to affect our ability to lead and our ability to create safety for others. That was a big integrative shift.
Woo, that is just medicine. I am so excited for you. And that is such an amazing example of shadow work, right? Integrating that shadow and just full acceptance. I mean, you started that whole story around wholeness, and you have to be a whole leader, right? And just to your point, like putting people on these pedestals and being gurus, they can't be their whole selves. They can't make mistakes. They can't show their vulnerability. I'll tell a quick story. When I was stepping into my ministry, I did a medicine journey, and my teacher told me, "Ask the medicine if you're ready to be a guide." And in my heart, I was like, "I'm not ready to be a guide because I'm not fully healed yet. I don't know everything. I'm not elevated enough." And I was outside, and I looked up to the trees, and all of the trees turned into peacock feathers. And the medicine showed me that the most beautiful things, like when in doubt, look to nature and show all of your colors, because all of your colors is what makes you beautiful, right? And I think that that's not talked about enough within leadership and within guiding too, since we're obviously on the psychedelic conversation. Even within therapeutic relationships, there's this hierarchical, like the therapist looks like, "Oh, I'm completely healed and I'm here to hold space for you." But really, we're on this human journey together. And so I think that it's so, so important to be co-creating with one another and showing one another's humanness. And I really, really loved that within Movement Maker, I have 5 different values that I really hold true. And 2 of them is integrity. And then the other is embodied wisdom. Because I feel like there's a lot of leaders there, especially spiritual leaders, who are walking around with a lot of knowledge in their head, but they're not actually integrated and embodied. And there's a really big difference between wisdom and knowledge. I mean, especially, it's interesting looking at the rise of AI and psychedelics. We have more information than we've ever had before, but we've had really less wisdom. So I just wanted to bring those things in. And with that being said, I think that's a good segue into you're really exciting because we're on the precipice of 2 of the biggest movements I think we've ever seen is AI and psychedelics. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Being in those 2 very exciting, very high potential opportunities. But with both of them comes great, great risk and great opportunity.
Yeah. And just to bring it full circle back to the paradox to being able to hold both in your hands at the same time, because both are true. Like both, it can be disorienting, destructive, discombobulating. It can create atrophy, in certain areas. And it can also build and teach and reveal and unlock. And so the intentionality and mindfulness that goes into our relationship, just like we want to have right relationship with the medicine, with the psychedelics, and hold that with integrity and hold it as sacred. The same is with technology, And so I believe that language is a software, and I believe that we can change every pattern in our life by changing the way we communicate, both within ourselves and with others. And one thing I'm really excited about with AI and these language learning models, it's language learning models, right? It's like teaching us language. It's teaching us another language, is that it can help us to change the language by which we're communicating, which can then change the dynamic that we're in with another person or with ourselves. So some ways that I love to use AI afterwards is, for me, like when I went through my psychedelic journeys, I had to relearn how to be a good human being. I had gotten so far away from virtue. I had gotten so far away from any redeemable values that I really had to rewire and reprogram those back into my life and as a very emotional person, if I was triggered, I could not find within that like tunnel vision view within myself the right language to communicate what I was really trying to say for the intended outcome that I wanted to have. And one thing that ChatGPT can do is we can dump out everything we're feeling, like all the emotions tied to it, but then we can also say, this is what I want to say, and this is what I want the outcome to be. Can you please rewrite this for me with nonviolent communication, with radical candor, so that this is the intended outcome? And boom, it'll really change that. And it gives you pause before you communicate. Then you can use that to send to the person that you're communicating with. That has been a huge game changer for me and for the people that I work with. Let's take that. Let's rewrite that. Like let's dump it out like fully, authentically for how you're feeling. So that part of you feels like it's heard and recognized for its feelings. So we're not bypassing anything. But then when it actually transmits to somebody else, it's going to hold a different frequency. It's actually going to hold the frequency that you're wanting to transmit for the outcome that you want. And do I still have moments where I fire off an Olivia bomb? Yes, I do. But it's a tool that really helps us to reduce that. There are therapists and guides and practitioners like myself and many others that help people to think about a new way to say that. But what I love about AI is that it's something you can use at any time, basically free, and it's a constant like companion that can help you to shift. The other thing too that we use it for with integration is, let's say you have a big insight come through in a psychedelic journey or experience, and it's that maybe it has something to do with the way that you interact with others, the way that you protect yourself. Well, you can also write out that whole insight that came through and then ask it to give you some really powerful affirmations to rewire that limiting belief or the way that you see it. So it's personalized for you. You can then take those out and start a daily practice with writing them out. There's just so many different ways that we can convert insights into application. So the other thing that integration is for me, and this came through a couple years ago, is integration is application. It's applying the insights that come through into behavior change, into a different way of being. And there's a discourse happening right now back and forth, is integration doing or is it being? Well, we can't actually be without some element of doing.
I was going to say it's both.
It has to be like even being in stillness. You have to actively make the choice to go sit and be. Like you have to do both. So, and love is an action. And so even loving for ourselves is showing up. It's going to the breathwork class. It's self-care, but it requires applying yourself. Another way to look at applying is like if you're applying for a job, as an application, you're making that intention, that action to do that, to be that, to be in that role. Lots of ways to help us just when we are stuck in our own limited perspective. It helps us to expand outside of the way that we saw that thing and give us more perspective. In A Course of Miracles, it describes a miracle as a shift in perspective. Psychedelics do that in a really powerful way. AI can do that in a really powerful way in so many different areas of our life. And the more we utilize AI to help us to be more compassionate, to help us to be more empathetic, to communicate in that frequency, the more we're feeding that back in, and it becomes this positive reinforcing loop.
Amen to that. All of that. I completely agree. I think it's so exciting. And within even my own Movement Maker incubator, I have different ways of using AI with teams, with power checks. I love that you just brought in putting your emails through AI, like with nonviolent communication. Just that alone would change the entire world, right? Every episode of the Call to Rise podcast is about the changemakers and movements reshaping our world. But the podcast is just the beginning. On my Substack, I open the door wider, sharing my personal journey with movement makers, the wins, the struggles, and the behind-the-scenes rituals that help leaders birth what's next. If you're ready to go deeper into the frameworks and practices you hear me hint at here, join me at globalmovementmaker.substack.com. One of the shadows of the psychedelic field is that lack of accessibility and affordability. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So much of AI right now is accessible for people. And so it's been a real journey of navigating how to pioneer and forge this path of integration to make it accessible. And how can we use and leverage what's already out there and accessible, but use it in a way that's, I think it's beneficial to the facilitator as well as their client. So right now we are pivoting fully to B2B because the platform that we've created, it works so much better with the facilitator on the back end and then providing the tools and resources. So as we're starting to build out this open source database of all the tools and resources that each individual practitioner and facilitator likes to use for integration. So I'll backtrack a little bit. We had a conference for facilitators in May, and it mirrored the TAP integration software platform, mind, body, heart, spirit. We had 50 speakers come and present in each of those different categories. What the data that we collected from that was that facilitators are not really looking for the integration standard, like what it is, because they all have their own tools and modalities that they like to use. But what they're needing is a system to support that, but that one that they can also take and use from other facilitators too. And so that's what the conference and the meetups have become, that we're expanding all over the country, is an educational, interactive, and experiential in-person experience where the facilitators can share their tools and modalities with each other, because we don't all have the time and resources to go to every training and every workshop. But together, the more togetherness we have, we're going to all of them. So why not share? why not what you get, give, what you learn, teach, Maya Angelou. Like that's one of our slogans. So what's coming through for me, I'm going to give to you and vice versa. And the technology is there to support and hold all of those modalities, but also to deepen the relationship with the facilitator to their client, because so much of integration is community, is connection, and feeling held, feeling like they have a sense of belonging to tribe, to the world, to community. So the technology is there to support that relationship with them, even ones that they've stopped working with. Maybe it's been 6 months, maybe it's been a year. Well, our technology is going to initiate that follow-up, that contact, and they'll be able to pull from our database of resources that are shared. It's a shared pot from all of the facilitators. So let's say you reach out, our technology sends a message to one of your clients that you haven't talked to in like a year. And hey, just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. And they give you a keyword of something that they're experiencing. Boom. Our technology can pull from one of the resources and give that to them. Those little reminders of the tools from each of those categories, it's that reminder to put them right back on the path. So I have a Telegram group, which is how all of this started, of most of the people that I've worked with and have done journey work with. And every week I'm providing new resources for them, and it keeps them connected. And we do challenges, gratitude challenge, miracle morning, the way of integrity challenge, and we'll run different things, and it just keeps them, no matter where they are in their life, on that path, because integration, it's a way of life. So my encouragement to facilitators is to encourage them to hold more. You can hold more. You don't have to just stop talking to them once they stop paying you. They don't have to drop off. There's a way for you to stay connected even if they aren't paying you. And by continuously adding that value to them, by showing them that you're thinking of them, that you care about them, even if there is automation involved there, is only going to make your business and more practice more regenerative, because you're going to be top of mind. They're going to feel cared for and supported. Chances of them referring somebody to you are higher. Those shouldn't be the reasons why you do that, but it's a natural benefit, right? So I think the more we step into abundance and make sure we're consistently showing up and providing value, the more return we're going to see on that. And that's how I see this being accessible. That's how I see it being more supportive for people, staying top of mind with the abundant resources and tools that are available to all of us. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it sounds beautiful. It sounds amazing. It sounds so needed. And I love the open resource component to that. I love the community development that you're doing. And then of course, I completely agree that that touch point really means a lot. And let's use technology and let's use the automations to be checking in, and just to what you're really talking to is developing relationships, right? And I love that you're pointing to integration is a lifelong journey, because in my mind, I really believe that life is just one big ceremony. And so we're always in ceremony and we're always integrating. I want to talk about, you really look at TAP as a movement. Like this isn't really a business for you. I educate people on the difference between building a business and building a movement, but I would love to hear from you why you think you're building a movement.
Because I think a movement, it's just a way of being. It's a way of life. It's who we are outside of the work that we do. It's us on a day-to-day basis. So it's when the mission and the vision, I think, for the work becomes just part of the mission and the vision for yourself, for who you are, for your life. When those two kind of integrate and coincide with each other, it becomes a fully like integrated whole energy that propels itself forward. It also shows other people how they can integrate the work and the business with themselves, with what they care about, with their passion. So it's a fully integrated life, work, relationships that all come together. And when you have that integrated energy, that wholeness, it's magnetic and it's powerful and it attracts others. And now everyone can start to move forward in this fully integrated way. So it's very different from when you have to put on your, that the hat of whatever role you're doing for your business, and you go into that, but when you leave, that's it, and you're a totally different person. That creates a fragmented type of energy, right? And that's when burnout can happen because there's a little bit of a misalignment there. And I think with any type of work that we do, if it's in integrity, if it's aligned with our values, if it brings up bringing in all of our virtues and our values and our core operating system and gifts and apply that to work to where we can stay in integrity in and out of work and business and life.
I so relate to that on a big, big way. I think also people that go through the psychedelic journey and their own personal healing work, you get to this point where you're like, okay, I've healed a lot of myself, and now it's time for me to give back. It's time for me to. And it's even a lot of people have that innate calling from a young age. You had it at 15 when you heard that song. You knew I'm here to serve, to give back, to bring humanity to a better place. And that's really what I teach. I work with people that are on that precipice, in that liminal space of, God, I know that there's this calling inside of me, and how do I bring that into fruition and have that? What you're really talking about is stepping into Dharma, because when you really truly find your calling, it's exactly right. There is no separation whatsoever. I don't work a day in my life. It's just movement maker is my life. And people that haven't arrived to that threshold, even a lot of my friends are like, wow, you're working a lot, or you're doing, I'm like, it's not work. Like I'm loving this. Right. And with that, you have to be careful, because there is so much passion and there is so much fire there that you have to kind of ritualize and have boundaries for yourself so you don't burn out with that fire. The integration is really stepping into sacred leadership, because that brings all of your shit up. I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Oh
things
my
that
God.
you thought that you had down, and then it's like, whoo, and really it's a lot of it, more even ancestral healing, as you're stepping into, oh wow, I have a lot of fear of visibility. Oh wow, I have a lot of people pleasing, or ooh, I'm not comfortable with conflict. All of these things come up.
Totally. That's been the biggest shadow work that I've done within the last, so it was a 2-year cycle ever since I signed up for Jamie Wheel's leadership training program in the dark canyons of Utah. That just like split out this like crazy masculine shadow leader inside of me. And we were the most dysfunctional team, little pod in the whole group of people. And I went in there like, I'm going to crush this. And no, no, no. It was a big slice of humble pie, and I feel like I'm at the end of it. It's been exactly 2 years. It's like really getting a, glimpse into that. That's like how ego dissolution happens, is when it sees itself. When you're like, so
Yep.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Speaking of humility and power and shadow and all of these things, what advice do you have for female movement makers, especially stepping into leadership, stepping into the tech sector specifically? Like, do you have any words of advice?
Yes, I would say that what we are needing more examples of, and there are very few in the world or in history, but is the integrated feminine and the masculine. And it becomes very easy to slip into the masculine energy or role in leadership, because it's what we've seen primarily. It's what we've experienced, it's what we've witnessed. But there is a way to lead with feminine energy as well, and really diving into what that looks like, who's a good example of that, and continuously doing the work to integrate. Because the difference between the feminine and the masculine leadership is that the feminine approaches it from the place of a witness and attunement. That is the biggest difference. The masculine comes in and seeks to assert, to dominate, to control, right? To create that, like the structure. And the feminine comes in and observes and witnesses, and then attunes to the people. And that's how you create harmony and buy-in and inspiration and motivation. There's nothing weak about that. There is a quiet strength that comes through attunement. And so I think women really learning how to attune and harmonize first within themselves, but then to be able to pause and wait and observe and see maybe Johnny's looking a little tired. I wonder if he's going through something today instead of just coming in. Johnny, you've been late for a whole, whatever it is. God knows I have leaned really heavy on that side as well. Women, unfortunately, because of their experience with the masculine dominating qualities of leadership, have over indexed so hard in that direction that they can become more tyrannical than the patriarchy. I mean, 10 times worse than the patriarchy has ever been. The amount of women that I work with that are suffering daily trauma from their female leaders is outstanding. It's like we fought so hard to be equals, to get on top, to be in that power structure that we've become the people that we were fighting against, or the energy, I should say, not the people. We've become the energy or the archetype that we did not love, that we were subjugated and suppressed under. And so we as women have this really exciting time in history that we've never been in before, where the men are just surrendering their responsibility left and right. So they're surrendering their power. And the more responsibility that we take, that we accept, that we pull in, the more power we are also taking in. But we have to hold that power responsibly. We have to hold it with the power and force of the woman. We have the sexual power, but we have to keep that integrated because that can get wonky too. But we can use that to our advantage as long as we practice being boundaried in our communication, in our energy, openness with boundaries. So really like diving into what like a truly integrated feminine leader looks like, the qualities that she embodies, going throughout history and like watch the movies of Queen Elizabeth, Joan of Arc, some of these like really incredible women, and just see the difference, see the nuance in the way that they lead.
So much richness there. I'm so glad that I asked that question. Thank you. And I love that you're pointing back to a lot of my movement maker incubator. I bring people to case studies on different archetypes of people that we can pull from as inspiration, in our own leadership and our own movements. So thank you for that. Anything else that you want to bring to the table before we wrap up?
Yes, thank you for asking. We have a newsletter on Substack. It's called Integrate, capital I, capital N, Integrate. That's a great way to stay up to date on which city we're going to host a facilitator meetup in next, and just stay abreast of all of the technology updates and features that we're adding. And then our website is tapintegration.com. You can find me at olivia@tapintegration.com. If you'd like to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn. Other than that, Tap will not be on any other like meta platforms or any other social media. So we'll always be off of that, but we are on YouTube. So the Activation Project is on YouTube. That's where you'll be able to find the interview that I'm going to do with Mackenzie tomorrow. And then, so Tap Integration is not merging, but we're collaborating with the Conscious Physician in New Mexico. New Mexico just recently legalized psilocybin for medical use. So she's a doctor out there. She's a facilitator. We just submitted a proposal to be part of the official practitioner training for the state. So she's rolling out a 9-month medicine practitioner training program certification, and we will be the integration training as well as the technology behind that. So we're looking for sponsors or companies that would like to be involved with that. There's a lot of people that need scholarships. We'd like to make it affordable and accessible, and we can only do that through the support and help of companies that want to get connected to it or people that would like to sponsor this project. So that's currently what we're calling in, what we're asking for. And yeah, that feels good for now.
Well, you are up to amazing work. Congratulations on that new partnership. That sounds really, really exciting. And I look forward to seeing TAP grow and your work grow. And congratulations on what you're building. It's incredibly needed and important. And let us all integrate moving forward, embodied wisdom. Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for listening to The Call to Rise. If today's conversation stirred something in you, subscribe and share it with a fellow movement maker. And join our community at globalmovementmaker.com. Till next time, keep leading with courage, keep weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy, and always remember to answer the call.